Hello everybody. We're at the Rasmus, Carl Erasmus's boutique hotel, and we have the privilege of sitting here in a lounge environment, nice and relaxed, and we're going to be discussing and talking to a legend in the koi industry, Servaas de Kock. Servaas, thank you so very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Now, before we carry on, most of you have a book like this in your library, your koi library, Living Jewels. And of course, Living Jewels, as you can see, was written by Servaas de Kock and Ronnie. Servaas, you were explaining to me just now that what Ronnie did in the book and the part that you did in the book. Can you just highlight that a little bit for us?
Yes, we must give credit to Ronnie,
Of
because
course.
he's the guy that did at least half of the book on koi appreciation. And it's his insight and research into koi and the beauty and aesthetics of koi that was put down in his words.
So am I correct by saying that he really did the anatomy section, he did the beginning of the book in terms of introduction of what a koi fish is all about?
Exactly, and he, he studied koi to the point where he could identify and reference all these elements in koi
Yes.
to appreciate, because he dissected it into the different parts, and by formalizing it really showed the world what koi was really all about. Unfortunately, people sometimes are looking too rigidly at those criteria, but that is just criteria to lead one into a direction of what the aesthetics part of koi really is.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, your section, but before we go on to that, is just to understand the background of your knowledge stems more from a physics and a chemistry perspective. Am I right? That is really your background.
Yes, I more or less had two lives. The one was the one of the physical part of life, the chemistry, and then when I retired, I went into koi, and then I had to learn everything about the biology of koi. So, but my interest was always in water and how to at least our life integrated with water, because really life came from water,
Yes.
and by looking after water, you'll be able to look after the koi. That's the first part.
So I see that you have in Living Jewels is koi appreciation. It's also the explaining the different varieties,
Yes, that's right.
and that is all the work that you did.
No, Ronnie did that part. I on the second the koi handbook, we really dissected the different varieties and the growth pattern, how they developed from a young koi to a old lady. So I'm not really into the aesthetics of koi. I'm into koi, and I'm mad about koi, but somehow I always go back to the water and what is best for the koi.
The Japanese have a saying, learn how to keep water and then have koi.
Of course, yeah.
The other thing that I wanted to just speak to you about is we were talking about water changes. Now, I found that many ponds and hobbyists want to preserve or save water by not doing water changes. Can you tell me what the danger is of that?
Yeah. In a closed system, if you don't have a proper filter system and you get rid of the nitrates, which tend to build up, and the DOC, the dissolved organics, they in effect foul the water. They just increase and they keep on building up. So unless you've got some way of getting rid of that and getting rid of the nitrates, you will never get a proper water. So what is happening is you've got to dilute the water constantly to get rid of that, and exchanging water on a regular basis is the only way that you can get back to normal. And
so it's water changes.
Doing water changes, yeah.
Okay.
But if you have a proper system of getting rid of the DOC, the dissolved organics, and also the nitrate, you can extend it by all means. But getting rid of the nitrates is very difficult.
Yes.
And it doesn't always work the way it, because the process of denitrification is difficult. It's on the opposite way of which we normally get rid of ammonia, which is of course from where the protein that you feed the fish ends up in the ammonia.
And in other words, then we have acid water.
Yes, and that is exactly the start of the acid. Whenever you feed your fish food, you're giving it protein.
Right.
And the nitrogen is the most important part of those proteins. Now the fish, in its process of eating food, will excrete ammonia, just like people excrete urea.
Right.
Very much the same. Now, ammonia has got three protons, hydrogens, in other words, and that's the start of acid. Now, in the process of nitrification in your filter, it goes from the ammonia to your nitrite. There's one, right, and then it goes to NO3, nitrate, and then it goes into your water. So in that process, 3 hydrogens is released into the water, and that is acid. So you end up with acid in your pond.
Right.
And that is why your ponds tend to have an acid creep going down all the time.
Okay.
And if you don't do something about it, it affects your filter.
Yes.
And when it affects your filter, it means your ammonia goes high. So getting rid of the acid in your water is critical, and having control of those is a very critical part of keeping the water more or less at a pH of 7 to 7.5. Now, the common way of getting rid of acid creep is to add something to counter that, and increasing the alkalinity of the water. That is, you can add either oyster shells, which is a good remedy, or there's various products, lime products.
Now that is something that I'm very interested in.
Yeah.
And can you just discuss why you like the lime product as well, due to the pH?
Okay, the common way of the people, if the acid goes up or the pH goes down, they will just add bicarb. Now, bicarb is okay for pools,
Right.
swimming pools.
Yes. But it's a temporary thing.
But you must also remember, swimming pool, you give pool chlorine,
Right.
which has got calcium, hypochlorine.
Yes.
So you've got a lot of calcium that you add into a pool. You cannot give chlorine into your swimming pool. So adding just bicarb is a temporary thing because it doesn't have stability to, or what we call buffering attitude to the water.
Yes.
So whatever you put into the water must have the ability to increase the pH and at the same time add buffering to the point so that you can stabilize the water. Now if you add anything like lime chips, lime earth, or oyster shells, or crushed shells, or anything like that, it will increase the pH up to a point of 8.6. It cannot go higher. It's chemically not possible. So what you are finding in your pond then, you're getting the happy medium between the acid all the time coming into the pond by feeding the fish, and the oyster shells or whatever other product you've got dissolving into the water and taking the pH up. And you more or less get a balance between those two where you like the best, because not everyone likes it at 6.8.
Right.
So you prefer to be at 7, but it's quite safe to go up to 6.8. So you find the happy medium by providing enough calcium product into your pond together with the food that you are giving.
I'll tell you what I do like about what you've just said is because that eliminates alkalosis.
Exactly, yeah.
And alkalosis, as we know, is just like acidosis,
Yeah.
which is deadly to the
Yeah.
fish.
Yeah. It will. You cannot put too much.
Yes. So now I understand that when I visited Japan in Niigata, where every single koi pond there had oyster shells.
Yeah. And a lot of them.
And a lot of them.
Yeah. We tend to quite too little.
Yes.
We tend to take too little. But you can never have too much.
Yes.
Of that.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. The other thing we must remember on this subject is that the effect of acid creep, if your pond is not properly sealed with either fiberglass or some paint or something, and I'm talking proper, you'll find that the cement of the pond gets eroded and starts to dissolve. And after 2 or 3 years, you'll find you'll be able to get leaks in your pond.
Now, that's very interesting. I've picked that up with many ponds randomly, where the pH rather is low.
Yeah.
And I've also found that the ecosystem of the pond, your biobacteria is not there, and you got this raw cement, cementatious edges, and that is where it is exactly what you're saying. It's starting to eat away at the cement, and sometimes I've even found little holes where if you put a screwdriver in, you can actually feel that the cement has become sandy.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a very interesting.
You
I'm glad you mentioned
a screwdriver is a good tool. You can either knock with the
and it brittles away.
Yeah, or you can just stick it in there and you'll find it goes into the pond.
I want to just go back, and there's a story behind how you started with koi fish, your interest. You were talking about a youngster.
Yes, he was staying with us, and he had a lot of tropical ponds in his home, in his room. And then he asked me he wanted to build a pond outside because he wanted to test if tropical fish can actually go through the winter in Gauteng. He wanted to try guppies and all those stuff at the minimum. And in any case, in this, I started to get interested in fish. And of course, my background is from Walvis Bay. I'm always interested in fish. And that just triggered it. And I went to Louis to a pet shop, and one day I selected two matsubas, a gin matsuba and a kin matsuba, and at about that size. And somehow it really, when we were able a year later to sell that back to that same dealer and get food for it, it triggered.
So that's where you started.
Yeah, that's where. And then, of course, we were just on our own. We didn't know what was happening in the industry. And then in 1989, I went on a training course in Los Angeles on biometrics, fingerprint
Yes.
recognition. That's 89 already, because we wanted to use fingerprint recognition for ATMs.
Right.
And I arrived in San Francisco, and as I was sitting in this hall,
Yes.
I went to the Avis counter to get my car, and at that point, the earthquake of '89.
Oh my goodness.
Now that was quite a serious.
Yes.
Now I had experience of such market, so I understand it. I had looked up, I looked at where I stood, standing, and I said, okay, I'm safer. I'm happy there. If it's so bad that comes down, it doesn't matter where I am. So the earthquake happened, and I'm not going to say what trouble it was to get home, getting to the hotel after that, because that's serious. But in any case, the next day, I was due to get training on, and the people just said, please, could you back off? Let me just sort out our lives.
Yes. So that was basically when you couldn't go on the course anymore, because now it was a survival.
Yeah, now I'm walking down this, and I went to a pet shop.
Yes.
Now, going into a pet shop after an earthquake,
Yeah.
and it is a big pet shop.
Yes.
I mean, and I went to the door and I asked him, can I come in? Because I'm interested in what I see.
Yes.
He said, okay, you can come in, but just be careful. We are still looking for a few snakes. But in any case, I went in, and then I found back copies of Brinko. And I was waiting to this, and I saw there's the inaugural meeting of Koi in South Africa. That is how I got interested.
So you're overseas and you pick up an article saying that there is
Koi in South Africa. And that was the inaugural meeting of at Mike Malani's house, at a farm.
Yes.
And immediately when I got back to South Africa, I started to make contact. And I was in time for the second show. And that is actually how I got interested in.
My goodness.
So I needed an earthquake and snakes. And a general interest for fish to get there where I am.
Unbelievable. That's a nice story. I want to, Servaas, we were talking just now with regards to the worldwide problem that everybody has, and in terms of the subject of Ikiwi. And some would say that it is sunburn, some would say that it is the immune system, and I'd like to just get your opinion on what you believe Ikiwi is about.
I think it's primarily genetics. Koi being inbred to a too high degree. You will always find it on fish that are on the red, and when the red is very good.
Right.
But I think it's a propensity. It's not Doesn't mean it's always like that, but I think it's a genetically orientated, and adding to that things like immune system, or which indirectly means feeding the fish, because if you don't feed the fish properly, it automatically affects the immune system. Yeah.
And of course stress.
Yeah, and that adds stress.
So am I right by understanding that what you're saying is that a fish may have Ikiwi,
Yeah.
but may not show the Ikiwi, and then when it gets to a stressed situation, the Ikiwi would come out, and so it's not a virus per se.
Yeah, we cannot really say it's not a virus.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just throwing it out there.
Yes,
so,
that's good. That's good.
Because we're all looking for the answer.
Yeah, because I found that we can treat it with antiviral treatment.
Okay.
So that also works. But it adds, you must still have a propensity for that to happen. So to me, it's not a clear-cut thing.
Mm-hmm.
But all I know is don't breed with that fish, and actually don't sell it. If your fish is, the problem is this tends to show only by the third, fourth year.
Yeah,
The fish
I've
has to
found
be
that.
big,
Yes.
and it's then when it happens.
And then it's the right age for breeding.
Yeah,
And that's the danger you're saying.
and
is
then you should
because
not
it's-
breed with that fish. Yeah, yeah.
And if I have a koi fish that is in my pond that has got serious Ikiwi, would you suggest to remove that fish from your pond?
Okay, you can treat it. You can remove it into the one side and then treat it. It will take about 2 or 3 weeks
Right.
by applying antiviral cream,
Yes.
like Zovirax. But you must be diligent. You must keep on doing it. You must every second day give that treatment. Get rid of
The jelly,
Yeah.
I call it the jelly, but
Yeah. But then there'll be a hole. The red will never come back.
so it won't be, if it was a showfish, it won't be a showfish anymore.
that's
But
right.
it will not have the Ikiwi.
Yeah, and that means that if it was a virus, it won't spread, because that's something we also noticed, that sometimes it does carry over.
Yes.
So I think it's a combination of it.
It's just a very interesting subject, and a lot of people, worldwide, the discussion comes up about Ikiwi, most people are just grappling at straws in terms of what it could be.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to get your opinion on what you have found.
Yeah.
Another very serious subject is the good old KHV.
Yeah. Don't you know that?
Yeah, it's and I do believe that that most people, when it comes to KHV testing, don't do it properly, especially when it comes to testing a fish in winter.
One must realize that KHV is a virus, of course, but it will only express if the temperature goes by about 23, 24.
So 23,
degrees.
24 degrees, yes.
So if it's cold enough, the virus will hide in the kidneys of the fish.
So it hibernates,
That's
literally
where it
hibernates
sits,
in
yeah.
the kidneys.
Yeah.
Okay?
So if you want to find out if that fish has got KHV, you've got to kill it
Right,
and scrape its
kidneys.
and then find out if it's got KHV. Okay, what do you want to do?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So the only way to get that to express the KHV is to heat it up for about 2, 3, 4 days. Then stress the fish. And you stress it by dip it in either a salt
Right.
or even permanganate.
Yeah, potassium permanganate.
Potassium permanganate.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm
No, that's
sometimes
fine.
the words doesn't want to come out.
That's fine.
So you've got to stress the fish,
Right.
and then you just wait. And I'm telling you, that will bring on KHV in a few days. byplay is typical. So if you really want to test the fish for KHV, you've got to heat it up to the right degree, stress it so that it, and really stress it. So if you dip it in salt,
Yes.
and then wait. You've got to wait for it to come out.
Okay.
Then you can find that. That's the only way.
Very, very
The
interesting.
problem is that people don't do that.
Correct. That's right. Well, it's just good for the viewers to know how the test process works.
Yeah.
Now, there's another very interesting point, and I just wanted to. I got my opinion, but I just wanted to find out from you. People ask me, when a fish has got KHV, why does it have a notch in the nose?
I must have been stupid, but I haven't seen it because I always look at the gills.
Right.
And if the gills are rotten,
Yes.
to me that is the real sign. And of course the smell. You will always smell KHV if it's in a pond.
What would it smell like?
I don't know. It
Is it-
smells
is it-
like KHV.
Is it really a rotten smell or a medicinal smell?
No, it's
Is it
it's
almost like
rotten.
a smell
It's
that
more
you
rotten,
have
yeah. It's
when you're
more
walking into a hospital?
It's rotten.
So it's a rotten
Yeah,
stench.
yeah.
Mm.
You know that.
Similar to what you'll have when you get to a pond, when they've spawned, you get that
Yeah.
rich ammonia smell.
Yeah.
You'd get it in a different way.
Yeah.
So you would smell
Yeah.
it. Okay. I'll tell you what I've been just researching is that within the blood system
Yeah.
of the fish, the reason why you have the notch
Mhm.
is because what they call osteomyelitis.
Yeah, so it's and that's for the eyes as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Okay, so
just
that's
somehow
just
never.
Well, the question was asked me once, and I'll be honest with you. It took me a moment just to
Yeah.
just to reply.
Yeah.
But I bring it down to osteomyelitis.
Yeah.
Myelitis.
Yeah. But
Okay.
that to me that can happen to other problems.
It
as well.
can.
Yeah.
It's
To-
not
to-
just KHV related.
To me, I always look at the gills,
Yes.
and that's the first thing I ask people.
Yes.
Open the gills,
Yes.
take a picture, and show it to me.
Would the gills also do the same for gill bacteria disease?
Yes, but it won't look
It
quite
won't
the
look
same.
quite the same.
Yeah, it would not quite
What
the
would
same.
the difference be?
It's more brown
Okay.
to me. It's more brown than normal infection.
Than bacterial gill
Yeah.
disease.
Now let me just add this. You can actually terminate KHP in your system. The only problem is you don't know what is left. So if you cure this, you just don't know what the rest is. But I think anybody that has got a selection of koi and you've got KHV can at least terminate it. But you must never breed with that fish, you must never sell it. But you can live with it. Now what you do is you treat the pond with benzalkonium chloride. That's a very standard disinfection. One must appreciate the transmission from one koi to another koi.
Yes.
The koi swim, and this particles comes from the gills.
Right.
And any other koi that swims behind it gets inoculated.
So almost the backdraft, if you can
Yeah,
call it
yeah.
that. Right.
Now, of course, if there's a pond and there's a lot of fish, the whole bloody pond
Yes.
is full of particles.
Right.
But the bigger the pond goes, and the less the fish, the more they are away from each other.
Yes.
But on feeding time, they start mixing. And you'll find the bigger the pond, the interval
Yes.
becomes longer.
Longer.
So if
Why
it's
does
a
that?
small pond with KHV, it's quickly in the sweat, everything is.
Sure.
So if you treat immediately with benzalkonium chloride, now you limit the transmission from one koi to the other. all those that have already been inoculated will die in any case. So over 2 weeks' time, you'll find half of your collection will die.
Right.
But you keep up with your benzalkonium chloride, and the rest will then be okay. And after that, you can sit back and then you have it on. So the moment they don't die anymore, then you know that's what you have left is okay.
So there is, sorry, carry on.
Yeah.
There is a way of eradicating and keeping part of your collection that survive.
Yeah, but there's a danger. It's now breeding like that, because you should not be breeding.
Yes, yes.
And you shouldn't be giving them away to other people.
Yeah, and biodiversity needs to, you need to be very careful of that as well.
It can always be the case that one or two of those fish that are survival has got the virus in them, and you just don't know.
Yes.
But at least your collection is safe, and you don't have to kill a lot. And you really got to think about that, because really how many people have killed their whole pond just to get rid of the virus and close the pond in the end, because it is such a devastating point.
Well, that's very interesting what you're saying, because normally it gets registered with government.
Yes, it's got to be
registered.
Yeah.
So, a couple of principles follow.
Yeah.
But I've always understood, and I'm glad that you've highlighted it, and also for the viewers, that I've understood that you've had to eradicate completely.
Yeah.
But you say that that's not always the case.
It is the right thing.
It is the right thing.
It is the right
as
thing.
a precautionary.
Yeah. But for God's sake, if that is your collection,
yes,
if you can save them,
yes,
and you keep it with yourself, and you don't mix it with all the other fish in the area,
yes,
why don't you save them?
Yeah,
save them.
Okay.
If you can save them. But you've got to be ethical about it.
Yes.
You must not breed with it. It's not a solution for a breeder. It is not a solution for a dealer.
Yes.
It's a solution for the private lover of koi.
And just to keep those fish isolated in that environment.
Okay, that's my personal feeling.
No. Well, this is what it's about.
Yeah.
Well, I must tell you that I just want to thank you, Servaas, so much. And part of this episode, I'm personally excited because you do leave a legacy behind and people know you and affectionately know you, and through the likes of the Living Jewels and your second book, the Koi Handbook, which is also available. And I just want to thank you so much for the contribution that you've done over the many years, and contributing towards koi fish. And then viewers, I just want to also apologize about the background noise or conversation, because we are at the Rasmus, and the Rasmus is a popular destination for lounging and having dinners. And we're obviously going to go and have a nice dinner right now. So thank you so much for joining us. And if there's any comments, please do pass it on, and that we can share that as well and give you some answers. But I hope that this has given you some nice insight on the experience that Servaas has also had over the many years. So Servaas, once again, thank you very much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Please push the notification button and to subscribe as well. Very important, so that you can learn from a lot more exciting episodes that lie ahead. Thank you.